This video will cover animation of our character rig. I made a couple adjustments to the rig in that I've changed the color coding for the root control here. It's now green. And my rotation controls, the ones that rotate, the neck, the shoulders, and the back, I have those in yellow. I have the right side in red and the left side in blue. So to set animation keys, the first thing that I do is set a key for all of the channels just at the first frame here. If I go and say select hierarchy, we can see all of the keys that are anywhere on any of the controls that I've set. I'll play through this. This is my little run animation. Okay, so we have a kind of gallop and then the character is off. But the first thing I do is select every control in the hierarchy, and I just hit the S button, and that sets a key for all of the global transforms here, and that's why we see a red key. Every key that I've set so far in the animation, and we can kind of click through, we can see each frame of the animation. This is down here in the time slider, and we can also, using these buttons here, we can go back a frame or forward a frame. We can also jump from frame to frame using these tools here, or we can play through the animation. I can go back to the first frame by clicking this go back to the start of the playback range button. Right now, we are just looking at 120 frames. The full length of the animation here is 200 frames. This tells us which frame we're on, and here we have how many frames per second are in our animation. We can go to our animation preferences, which is this little running man with the gear here, and we can see what our animation start and end is. If we are animating at 24 frames per second for a 30-second animation, this would be a value of 720. And then this is the playback start and end range is 1 to 120. And we can we'll save here. We can also like zoom in and out on the timeline so we can see the full scope of the entire animation. If we use this slider here, we can zoom in to a smaller range to really fine tune any keys that we've set. So I've currently only set keys from frame 1 to 120, so I'll set the length of my animation here to 120, which is about 5 seconds, at 24 frames per second. So to set keys, so what I do is, let's play through a little bit of this. I have a kind of head nod and then it starts to run. So maybe what we'll do is by the end, we'll take a look at how to set these keys. If I want to set a key somewhere else, let's say maybe here, I'd like a little head shake. So I can select the controller, which I want to animate. So in this case, it's the neck control. And then what I would do is make a change to the values here. Maybe turn this to the side and maybe up in the X. And then what I'll do is I'll select the channels by having Shift and click on those channels in the channel box. I'll right click and I'll say key selected. Wherever you see a red indicator here, that means there's a key on this frame. And wherever you see pink, that means there are keys that have been set for these channels, but not on this particular frame. So then I'll click through a little bit farther and maybe set those rotation values again. So I will select that controller that I want to set keys. In this case, I'm going to rotate it because it's a controller that controls the neck joint. So then I'll kind of set these keys again and key selected. Now, if I don't want any more if I want to delete keys, I can right click here and delete selected. And I think that that's going to delete all the keys for those channels for the entire timeline. So I don't want to do that. If I want, I could delete every key that I've set that way. I can also go to a particular key here, and that if I right click over that particular key, I can hit delete, and that's just going to delete that one key at that one frame. So I'm going to undo that and reset that key. So now I have a little head nod as this character is running. And another, so you would be setting the keys, in this case I have um, these controllers here are for the IKs. So the IK handles would be moving. So we can kind of move this up and down. And how I set these keys initially, I can kind of show you by, um, let's go and select all of our keys in the let's select all the controllers in the hierarchy, select all of the channels here. We'll start fresh. We will delete those keys. We will go to the first frame, which um, and now we will set a 0 value in all of these channels. Let's hit F. And now we're back at our center of our grid. Right here we are in the center of our grid with our rig back to neutral. So to get a kind of run or walk animation, what I do is I'll select one foot here, and first I'm at this first frame. So what I'll do is, again, good practice. I'm just going to select every controller in the hierarchy, and then I can hit S, and that's going to set a key for every single channel. So that is a hotkey for setting keys for every channel. And then maybe I'll pop forward to frame 5 and begin the animation cycle. So I'm going to start with this left foot. I'm going to maybe, um, let's lift this leg up. And then for the channels that I've changed those values, I'm going to select them here in the channel box, right click and say key selected. Then I'm going to move forward in time. I'm going to change. This is how we set keys. We select the frame, then we make a value change in our channel box in our global transform values, and then we can change the frame number again, and then make another adjustment, and then right click over that adjustment and say key selected. So key selected here. Now we see those keys have been set. Although, however, I have the same from here. Those keys are there and there. So let's make an adjustment actually and reset those keys. So this will kick back, and then I will select these and say key selected. So I can always overwrite keys that are already been keyed by going to that key, making my adjustments here in the channel box, and then resetting. So now I have this kind of motion. So to make this a full cycle, I would want to position back, let's say that's at 11, so let's go forward maybe to, so 5, 11, and then maybe 17. So every 6 frames it'll cycle through, and I want to have the same values here that I have at frame 17. So to do that, I could copy these values. I can also just copy this key. I can go to this key. Let me undo. There we are. Go to this key and say right click over and say copy, and then I can jump to the frame I would like to jump to and right click again and say paste. And so now I have a kind of a bit of a cycle. So with those keys, I can continue to kind of copy and paste them over. There's a couple ways if I want to create an endless loop. Or if I want this to run for a particular duration and then stop, I have to approach it 2 different ways. So the next tool I'm going to look at here in order to continue to modify this animation is going to be under Windows, Animation Editors, and the Graph Editor. And the Graph Editor plots a graph of each channel here that has been keyed. And so we have in this axis in the graph editor, it's like a 2D. We have an X and a Y. In the X axis of the graph editor is the frame number, and in the Y is the value of that key that's been set. And then we have our translate, in this case, translate X and Y are the 2 channels that have keys set. So and remember we have frame 0 or frame 1 here is going to be our default pose. So what I'll do, and what we can do is we can select keys and we can hit F and frame them up. We can also move around the graph editor using our same panning hotkeys here. So command or option and then middle mouse, and we can pan around the graph editor. And then we can also use that option and right mouse or the wheel to zoom in and out. So if I'd like to if I'd like to copy these keys over, what I can do is I can copy them and then use these playback tools here, and then I can say paste. And I don't want to say paste like that. Sorry. I want to go to this frame. I have them selected. I dragged a marquee to select these keys, not this first key, because that's the kind of T pose or neutral position of our character. I'm going to go up to edit, copy, and then I can say at this playhead, paste these keys again. So I can say edit, paste, and now we have them continued. So, and I see them here down in my time slider. So I can do the same thing where I've selected these keys, copy, and jump down using these tools here and paste. And again, not a copy and a paste, or not a command V, which is what I'm trying to do accidentally. What I want to do is an edit copy and an edit paste from the edit menu. And now I'll select these. Let's see if I can do it the correct way instead of by my tendency is to try to do Command C, Command V, but in this case, I want to copy them here, jump to the end key, edit, paste. Okay, and now I have a loop of those keys. What I can do is select these keys and edit copy them. And let's say I want to repeat that motion for the other leg, and then I want to stagger it. So the first thing I'll do is grab this controller here. And that first key was on frame 5, so I'm going to just type the value of 5 here, and it's going to pop my time slider, my playhead to 5, and then I'm going to say edit paste. And now you'll see that we have, and let's make sure that at frame 5, let's go back to this, to this, let's go back here, let's select just these keys, not at the first frame. Select from frame 5 and over and copy. And let's try to paste them here into this channel. So edit, paste. And again, we almost have it correct. So we'll hit F here. And let's take a look. So there we are. So we have a bit of, let's see, something's a little bit off. And that's because I didn't copy I've copied the X value, but not the Y. So let's undo that. Let's go back to this and let's select both of these keys, copy them, all of them, edit, copy, and now go to this second controller and try one more time, edit, paste. Okay. And now we have both the translate Y keys and the translate X keys. And now we see that we have a kind of digging motion. We want to stagger one leg and the other. So let's go to that frame, maybe frame 10. And we would like the right leg to be in front while the left leg is back. So what I'm going to do here now, still with this with the right controller selected, I'm going to grab the keys that I've just pasted. And now I'm going to use a tool. I'm going to hit F to frame it up so that I can see. Now I'm going to use this tool here, which is the region tool, scale or move keys. And this is how I can kind of retime keys if I'd like something to be faster or slower. I can use this tool to scale the keys. Now this will slow down that motion. We can preview this in our viewport here. Just remember, I'm just working with the keys for the right leg. I'm going to go ahead and hit right. And so now that's moving slower. And we can also use this tool to reposition the keys. So I want what I have at frame 5, which is the leg forward, to actually start on frame 11. And so what I'll do is, and we're going to want to hit we can like left mouse button and move these freely, but we're changing the value of the keys as well as changing their timing. So what we want to do is hit shift and middle mouse, and this will scrub those keys over. without changing their values. So only moving them in the X axis of the graph editor. And so now I can put that key right there. Now if I go ahead and play through, I have a kind of, they're running um, staggered. Okay. So that is the other thing is if we want this to cycle endlessly, we could use this keys or curves post infinity cycle or cycle with offset. There are different ways that we can procedurally continue the keys. If you have a scene where you have a car that's running and the wheels are constantly rotating at a constant rate, you might want to just set one rotation of that wheel and then set under curves post infinity cycle. So for example, if I hit cycle here, you can see that now those keys are going to continue, including that first key, which is the neutral position. So now you can see what that kind of looks like. Then this is just for that right leg. Okay. And again, this is if we had a longer animation. We just have 120 frames, so let's make it a little longer just to preview this functionality. Um, and once we pass where the keys are, this right leg will continue to loop this motion over and over. Okay. So I'm going to undo those last few things that I've done. And so that's how we set keys for our character controller. I also, would want to do the same thing for the back. And then I can go in and make adjustments to the keys. I can do it here and using these values here. And I can also, let's just go back to the animation editor, the graph editor one more time. And I can always select individual keys and change their value in the time slider. And now I'm able to move it around. I can also then just easily set a key somewhere else by right-clicking anywhere in the timeline and saying insert key. And now that's going to insert a key at this position, and I can change its position. I can also change its tangents here. So how it transitions from one to the next. We also have some of those tools up here where we can, instead of having it ease in and out, we can make it a linear curve. And so we have an abrupt end. And again, just to preview what that looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like in the graph editor, and that's what that'll translate to in the actual animation itself. Okay, so that's a brief overview of animating a character rig.